Hey, everybody, welcome to the WODcast podcast. I'm your host, Eddie Ifft, and this is a brand new episode coming to you straight from, I'm in Lake Norman, North Carolina for another couple days, and I'm not going to lie to you people. This show's about health and fitness, strength conditioning, CrossFit. I'm a mess right now. I haven't worked out in 2 weeks. I have been sick for a month. God only knows what it is. It's not COVID. It's a cold that won't leave. It's literally going on, I think it's about a month today that it started, and I can't get rid of it. And I never like to take medicine. I like to just use, natural remedies and stuff like that, but I can't get rid of this. I actually called a doctor, got a prescription, but I'm a mess. So I did a very interesting episode this week, though. I talked to Dylan Farr, who is my go-to on health and nutrition that I talk to all the time. You can find him at Physiologic, and that's F-Y-S, F-Y-S, Phys-I-O-L. Oh, my God, I'm an idiot. I have to see it to be able to say it, but it's G-I-K. Physiologic, okay? So it's F-Y. I'm not even going to do it again. I'm not going to do it again. I'm not going to make a fool out of myself. I'm a fool. I mean, I'm an idiot, but I'm not a fool. And I'm not going to spell that wrong for the fourth fucking time. That's how cloudy my head is. Can you hear me? I'm congested. I got a cough like you've never heard before. Anyway, here's the deal. We are doing the show. Dylan and I got to talk to him. And he's like my go-to. I talk to him every couple times a week. He's my wife's trainer and nutritionist. He is my go-to guy when I want to find out about if I should take this supplement or that supplement, or I should eat this food or more of this food, or take this or take that, or do this or do that. The guy is just, he considers himself an autodidact. He did not go to school for any of this stuff. He is self-taught. And you'll see the guy is more knowledgeable than anyone I know when it comes to nutrition. Beyond that, if you guys like the show, you're listening to it, I've noticed some new Patreon guys. We got a winner this week. Patreon, you win a Myopux and a leopard claw. And if you don't believe I actually use this Myopux, this week I had to order 2 new ones from my Troy Willis over there at Myopux. I had to get 2 new ones, one for my father-in-law, one for my father. My father-in-law sprained his ankle, possibly broke it, and I was making him run this thing 3 times a day. My father fell and has a bruised quad and was just really sore, and I have him working it. So I really believe in these things. I think each and every one of you should have one. Best way to get one, donate to the show. $5 a month, you get extra episodes. Just posted one with Chris Cote. Extra episodes. I'm going to do another one this week. And you get the chance to win a Myopux and a leopard claw. Myopux is an electronic muscle stimulator. You should all know what that is by now. If you don't, check it out. Go to myopux.com. Leopard claw. I think we're going to start giving you something new because they're out of leopard claws. The leopard paw is what you're going to be getting, because the leopard, it's very similar. People actually like it better, but they're out of leopard claws, so you're going to get a leopard paw. And also you can get a case of C4 Energy from Cellucor. So all you got to do, $5 a month. That's $1 an episode, because we do 5 episodes a month. $1 an episode, and you get to win all that cool shit maybe. And there's a good chance you're going to win it. Other than that, great sponsors. I am loving this new sponsor, Mudwater. I don't know if you've ever had Mudwater, but I am not a caffeine guy. So I like Mudwater because it's a coffee alternative. And you're like, well, what's it come from? It's got 4 aptogenic mushrooms and Ayurvedic herbs. I don't say herb because I'm not from England. It's got 1/7 the caffeine as a cup of coffee. You get energy without the anxiety, jitters, or crash of coffee. That's my problem. I was getting the anxiety. No more with this. Each ingredient was added for a purpose. It's got cacao and chai for mood, a microdose of caffeine because of that. Lion's Mane for alertness, cordyceps to help support your physical performance, and chaga and reishi to support the immune system, which I needed more of. I wish I had been drinking this before I got sick a month ago, because it also has turmeric, which is great for post-workout soreness. I take curcumin all the time. Turmeric is in this. Don't need the curcumin. Like, that's one of the things Dylan and I talk about in this episode, is like overdosing on stuff. And you don't need to. You know, like right now, if I'm taking my mud water every day, I don't need to take my turmeric or my curcumin. It's also got cinnamon for antioxidants. I used to drink cinnamon tea. Stop drinking that because now I've got mud water. You should have it too because it tastes delicious. And even on this episode, I was talking to Dylan about how I especially shouldn't have coffee after 11 a.m., but I need it because the kids are making me crazy and I need energy. And this is the way you get it with mud water. Also told me that I can blend this into my shakes. I drink a protein shake all the time with my naked protein. I can add mud water to it. So like, this is what we talked about, trying to get all your stuff and not trying to overdose on this stuff. So mud water is Whole30 approved. It's 100% USDA organic. It's non-GMO. It's gluten-free. It's vegan. It's kosher certified. But above all that, it tastes delicious. And, you know, put it in the protein, you know, put it with honey, put nut milk in it, whatever you want. Just do me a favor. Go to mudwater.com, mudwtr.com/WODcast to support the show and use the code WODcast at checkout for $5 off. That's mud, M-U-D, water, D-T, I'm sorry, not water, it's WTR. So mud, M-U-D, WTR.com/WODcast. Support the show. You're going to get $5 off. Look, if you're ever wondering about any of these deals we give or any of our sponsors, we love our sponsors. I've got them all over the website, WODcastPodcast.com. Go on there. There's click-throughs there, and there's codes there to tell you, you know, how to get money off and save. We've got some excellent ones coming up with Thorn, Naked Protein. Just check them out. Go to our site. You'll love it. Also, if you want to check out any of my dates that I'm performing live, they're all over my site too. Some of the dates haven't been added because they're not up on the comedy club's sites yet. But I am coming to as many places as you can see on my Instagram, on my site. I've got all the tour dates. So go check out my Instagram at Eddie Ifft, my YouTube at Eddie Ifft, my TikTok at Eddie Ifft, Facebook Eddie Ifft. All those places. You want to check out where I'm coming live. Seriously, I'm going to be all over the country from Alaska to Florida. You name it, I'm coming there. And all my dates are there. New ones coming up. I'm going to be at Huntington Beach pretty soon. That's in August. Then September, Atlanta, Ventura, Kansas City, Las Vegas. So check out all those dates at eddieift.com. That's IFFT. And enjoy this episode. Oh, I wanted to mention who was our winner of our Myopux and Leopard Claw. So I just sent them a message before I even told. I was like, you know what? I was having a conversation because they were looking for the 5th episode. And I said, guess what? You're our winner, too. Dave Painter. Dave Painter, congratulations. Got yourself a Myopux and a leopard paw. So send us an email over at WODcastPodcast@yahoo.com, and we'll hook you up with that. All right, buddy? Thanks for being a supporter of the show. We really appreciate all you Patreons. We appreciate our sponsors. Check them out at eddieift.com or WODcastPodcast.com. And come out and see me live. And if you have any advice on how you get rid of a cold that's lasted a month, that's turned into bronchitis or asthma or whatever the fuck it is, send me your ideas because I'm trying everything and anything. If you've ever been in this situation, let me know. Other than that, enjoy the episode with Dylan Farr here. What do you have to say for yourself, Dylan Farr?
I don't know. It's pretty cool. Thanks for having me again, man. I don't know. It's weird. We always talk on the phone anyway. So what's different about now?
What's different about now is, like I said, anything you say can and will be held against you in a court of law.
Okay, I'll take off my gimp suit and I'll relax. Thanks, Eddie.
It's weird because you do. You say a lot of stuff, and I say a lot of shit on a phone call that we're like, wow, people should hear this. But then you get where it's being recorded, where people can hear it, and you're like, oh no, I better be a little more circumspect because I am worried that I might have said something that could have. And when you're on podcasts that people hear a lot, you also get a little. I get a little scared of. I always want to put a disclaimer of like, I don't really know what I'm talking about, so don't don't hold me to it, because people do hold you to it. They're like, how dare you get out there and say that and have an opinion, and or say something's true or say this is that. So I'm always like, yeah, I think this is true. I've heard this. I read
Right.
a study. Never do I say anything declaratively.
Well,
So
I suppose we can't. I mean, that's what the whole tenor of science is about, is right. It's evaluation, adding statistical and empirical data to it, and then it grows and develops. It becomes smaller and bigger. So I guess, why wouldn't our opinions be like science and maybe a little bit flexible? But, fair respect to everyone these days. It's this hyper stimuli of information, and then the internet, this incredible brevity of information that's coming at us. And then we're having to learn how to discern it. And then a lot of it's being sold. So it's like, yeah, it's interesting days, man. But anyways, if I offend any of y'all, I apologize on the front end.
well, Bill Burr had a funny joke about, he used to say, where'd you find that on I'mAlwaysRight.com? Like, you can go on the internet and find people that will validate anything you believe, or a website that will show truth to your theory, your argument, whatever it is. And so people always go to that and use that as their backup. That's part of their echo chamber. They go, oh well, there's this guy. This guy said there's a study here that says it, or this says it. Like, you could go, creatine's really good for you, and then you could find a million websites that say creatine's bad for you. You could find a million that say it is good, or you should do this, or you should do that. And so it's really hard in these days to pick supplements, training programs, everything, because everybody's trying to get their narrative going.
Yeah, it's true. Well, the thing is though, is what I find, instead of it being like a lot of us talking about how it's kind of like this insipid, this indulgement of info, and we can just kind of like jerk ourselves off with, clinging to our confirmation biases and our own, I mean, it gets into the conversation as deep as free will and philosophical notions. But the truth is, like, what I do with my work is I've actually gone very agnostic, if you will. I know what my passions and my opinions are, but I know in regards of like the nutrition and wellness thing, I found that the more that I align myself to being quote unquote agnostic and looking at the consensus of evidence-based information instead of singularities of it, that you'll see that there is just that, a consensus. And from there, I find that there's a typicality that can apply to all of us. Because, and not to insult anyone, but none of us are really unicorns. I'm learning that with my work and myself. And so a lot of these things that are applicable, they're kind of ubiquitous. They're available to us. What really is important, though, is the context and the nuance of things. How do we eat our macros? What are our micronutrients? I eat this, I don't eat that. Yeah, so I find being in the middle and being, the more agnostic I get with it. I work with, I'm into ketogenics personally myself for my mental health, my brain health, TBI stuff. I work with people who are vegans. I was vegan from 13 to 27 staunchly. I work with your wife. She's amazing. It's modified Mediterranean diet. I want to talk to you about your food, but that's, you've been in PA forever. Have another hot dog. But yeah, man, like, I don't know. I think the best thing for us to do is I don't know, we don't have to speak in acrimony. It's okay. Hear people, work in the middle, and slowly adjust. And from there, that you're automatically in flexibility. And I think that's really important these days. And just to smile and wave sometimes. Sometimes you don't have to posit your opinion, or yeah, it's okay,
That's weird. That's funny. Sometimes you don't have to have an opinion. And I was just talking recently about my brother-in-law. I have a brother-in-law who is in our family. There's a lot of kids. There's 5 kids, and a lot of in-laws and stuff like that. We have this one brother-in-law, and it's his birthday, and we were doing something for him. And I go, he's the most popular one in the family. Like, no one's ever mad at him. Everyone likes him. Everyone wants him around. And really smart guy, but, really smart guy. Probably the smartest in the family. And the reason he's so popular is because he never gives his opinion. He actually holds back. And I think partly because he's so smart. And he just goes, I know all this. And I just rather hold back because, it's like a bunch of children arguing over if it's a square or a circle. And he just rather stay out of it. And for some reason, people aren't staying out of it. Everybody's got an opinion. Everybody's got knows better than the next person. And the media.
Well, where do you think that comes from, Eddie? Because I had it's ironically yesterday. It's Tim soon. I hope you hear this, Griffin. But he made a comment yesterday about like the vaccines and.
Who's that? You froze up for a second. Who was that? Who said this?
Forgive me. So I was talking to a young man that I mentor, and he's in Fire Academy. He's a really cool guy, a great athlete. But like as young men are, we're a little verklempt and we have an opinion. And yesterday he sent me a text about like the vaccine and his opinion on that. I was like, regardless of my opinion, whether I've had it, whether or not, whether I've had all 3, all 5, whatever's. But I just asked him, I said, hey, is this your battle? Like, why are you, this doesn't matter to me. I have blessings to you. Like, and it was really interesting because that's such a polarizing thing right now. And it's ironic because I moved here as an immigrant and I've had measles, mumps, rubella vaccinations. And so it's just curious where people suddenly come out and it's like, I didn't ask you that, brother. I asked you how you doing, so I don't know. It's been, especially me, Eddie, I talk so much and I can be intense. And I've just found that we can kind of rescind ourselves, right? Literally like burn ourselves back into a little bit of joy, like our health and wellness and being fit. Like, fuck, man, I think we spend more time on our opinions than we actually do on doing the work and thinking about the work and the results, and that's like, I mean, I tell your wife this all the time, like she's, family occasions, socialities. And it's like, not only do we have an opinion about everything else there, we have an opinion about ourselves and what we're doing. And I've really, hi, Lauren, I love you. She's been so awesome because of her flexibility. So if we think, again, going agnostic, I said when I first worked with, I said, we got to burn down a couple churches or temples, whatever, like don't get offended, and build up new ones, reconstruct ideas and maybe, change and adjust them. And so in regards of opinion, regards of your position, I mean, I'm going to give my opinion to her because she's paying me for it. And I need to yield results with her health and her wellness. So that's a place where opinions matter. Right. But, all in all, I think there's a lot of love in the world. I think right now, a lot of us are scared. I just spent 15 months by myself in my apartment alone. And, you get into that conversation. So I deal with mental health stuff and you take an existential truth and then apply it to like, a TBI related thing. The last year has been the most honest and stoic period of time in my life. 9/11, the 70s with the gas embargoes, war. I remember all that stuff, man. And this last year. So that being said, with everyone, like, if we do rescind back into our opinions a little bit, we're not into them, but like away from them and just relax, smile. Fuck, we don't have to wear masks 24/7. I've enjoyed so much seeing people, and to capture a smile and it's, I don't know, man, maybe I don't want to get a little sappy about it, but that's the truth, man. I think we've all been through a big, the world didn't end, the orange Godzilla has left office. We're okay. Now Uncle Biden's in there and we're okay. We're going to be okay, people. Like we're rad.
Well,
we're resilient.
Saying that,
yeah.
I'm going to bring you into a very controversial topic that I just want your theory on this and your understanding of it, because it is, in the CrossFit world, in the exercise world, whatever, there's a whole bunch of like, what diet is best? Should we be eating meat? Is plant-based better? Blah, blah, blah.
Awesome. Yeah.
And I just want you to talk me through, we live in a world, and I'm experiencing that being at the in-laws. And I mean, my wife's parents and my parents, the amount of sugar that is just out there and that is just commonplace and is just, it's almost impossible. It's like, I feel like, it's like, if I was in prison, I'd probably smoke cigarettes. When you're here, it's like you can't avoid it. At my house, I can avoid it. We just don't buy it. But here, it's
Right.
constantly in front of you.
Well, Lauren told me this, not to be like personal, and it's really interesting listening to that experience, because one, I don't really get it, right? Because I don't have I don't really see, my family's not really, we're not nuclear like you guys, like you guys are pretty close, which I think is awesome. By the way, hi family, I love you guys. But yeah, we talked about having a strategy, and not to cut you off, but yeah, so continue. Like, what do you do there? Because I'd love to talk about this, because it's not about how bad it is, it's about how we manage it. So I digress. Continue.
So what I'm saying is, how you watch people around you and their diet is horrendous, and you go, okay, well, at least I'm not like that. Like, I'm putting in, better quality food and trying to, snack a little here and there, and just, but when I wake up in the morning, there's Dunkin' Donuts down on the table. It's hard not to grab one, and I think you, in the way you train people with nutrition, you have a lot of ways of kind of avoiding those feelings, those cravings. And I know when I quit sugar completely, I don't crave sugar. But if I have a little bit of sugar, it's like, oh my God, I need sugar. And it's also one of those things that you don't ever see. You drink a beer, you get drunk, or 2 beers, you get drunk. You eat sugar, you just feel happy. You don't see what, like, even alcohol, you don't see the deleterious effect that it's going to do over time. You don't know what it's doing to your liver. And it's the same with sugar. You don't know until you're 60 years old and all of a sudden you're diabetic, or you don't know until you're 60 years old and you have some inflammation disorder and whatever it is.
There are signatures though, Eddie, that show up earlier.
Like what?
Well, for instance, I've talked to you about this. It's called lipofuscins. So quickly, let's understand what sugar is. So sugar in the blood is like this, I think it's called a parallel protein ligand, right? And they're innately inflammatory by the composition of how much energy they have, right? So think of it as like, it's like dirty energy that needs to be burned off. So the thing is our bodies by threshold, those things, nothing is bad, right? Every food's poison and nothing is bad. And I know people are like, fuck, dude, what does that mean? So for instance, those donuts, right? There's the nutrient density is down here. The energy abundancy is up here. So the thing is that there might be a place for that food. So you go, okay, so Dylan, when would you eat that food? And I'm like, all right, Eddie, we're gonna run four 400s at the track with 50 squats per round. And you're like, and we're gonna eat donuts. I go, no, just before, and I'd probably only eat half. And I would take 500 milligrams of sodium and a little shot of coffee with it. There's the usability of that glucose and the glycemic abundance that's in there. It's usable, man, but we have to use it in context. Unfortunately, we're not waking up in the morning and going to run or do, a significant workout like that. So back to before kind of your comments, one of the things that I've learned, and it's funny you said that, like training people with their nutrition, that's really cool. Cause yeah, that's a cool wordplay on it. What I do with people is just that. It's building a strategy around how they eat, slowly adjusting it. Because here's the thing, when like for instance with Lauren, she was so concerned about her cravings, man, within 56 to 72 hours, I had her. She's like, God, I feel better. And also the deal with Lauren, so people know, is like, I haven't worked with her in continuum. It was like 3 different segments. So she's worked with me and then she's gone a little back into like malaise, and not malaise in a bad way, but just like, and then she calls me and she's like, hey, Dylan, I miss you. Like, can we get the band back together? And that's to me the hugest compliment. And then she kind of faded off again because you guys are traveling, and it's come back. To me, it's such an affirmation of realizing it's not so much about the diet, but it's about the stratagem and approach that we have when we're going into socialities, we're with family, and we're traveling. So for instance, you, brother, I was talking to you about your traveling. And so let's cut to the chase. I told Lauren yesterday, I was like, you should have done this. And she's like, oh shit, no way. I wish I would have called you. Well, let's quickly discuss that because I love talking actionables. Who the fuck wants to hear me just talk? So for instance, Eddie, if you're out there, we know that most people are in those environments. There's going to be fried foods, typically richer, heavier meats, right? Maybe some vegetables, you'll have some salads and stuff, but typically it's going to be a lot of it like accessory foods and appies and, appetizers and stuff. Fair play. What I would do in that environment is I told Lauren, I said, in that space and place, we can do almost an approach of what we call a protein sparing modified fast. So what a protein sparing modified fast is, what I'll do for myself in like a 16 to kind of 24-hour episode, well, I'll eliminate glycogen-rich foods in my body and just align myself to heavy protein-based foods. And then what are those proteins? I have an acronym called SEAL, Sea, Earth, Air, Land. Have at it, man. So in Lauren's case, I'm like, all right, baby, go have a steak. And she's like, that's it. And I'm like, have 3 burgers with cheese on it. So for that 2 days that she's in Pittsburgh, or that she's on the road, or she's traveling, or she sees clients, what we can do often is just have a strategy approach with it. And as I told you, if we're working, I used to, when I was working in the surf industry, I used to use my days there as quote unquote mortgage time. I'm already working for these good folks. I'm giving them my servitude. Why would I not take that time to back in on myself and take advantage of it and eat extra tidy and be on point and clean? Because also in that day is a low energy day. Mm-hmm. So this also speaks to the energy expenditure on a low energy day. If you're working and being, we're moving around, we're hustling, but we're not training. That's a great day to be constrictive with glycogen. Then the following day, maybe you work out or you go surf or then you eat a little bit of more calories. So suddenly what's happening.
Let me interrupt for a second. Does it matter on
Please.
The days you work out? Does it matter if you use that glycogen before? I mean, do you have to eat it before the workout, or is it okay if it's after the workout?
This is a great question, Eddie. So what I've discovered here, and I'll quickly segue in a second point because I want to loop around to it. There's a big hoopla about CGMs, constant glucose meters right now, about how they don't work. And now I'll tie back into your comment about, is it before or after? A lot of people are saying, constant glucose meters on a population of people that are non-diabetic don't work. Yeah, they don't. That's the whole point. Like if you take a person, because you and I have talked about wearing them. So a constant glucose meter, for people who maybe don't know, is it's a microdermic needle. You wear it on the back of your arm or on your belly, and basically gives your phone now, or it gives a module, a constant read of your blood glucose in predictive intervals. So you can eat, train, sleep, whatever, and you get the data back. So anyways, the people are saying, well, if I wear a constant glucose meter, I'm going to immediately lose weight. The problem is they're looking at the wrong segment of it. They're looking for their, my blood glucose drops super good, after postprandial read, meaning after meal.
Okay.
Sorry.
I just want to know what that meant.
Yeah. Postprandial, preprandial, it just means after meal. So they've eaten the food and they're like, oh my God, look at my, blood glucose has gone so low. And I'm sitting there scratching my head and I go, why wouldn't it be? And they're like, well, I'm kind of fat and heavy. And I go, not to be, whatever's, but if in that case, I'm like, but you're not pre-diabetic or diabetic. You don't have an insulin reception issue. So what happens is people are going, looking for this low blood glucose right after meal. It was never really high. What they want to look at, and actually I want to send a shout out to my friends and peers over at this Optimizing Nutrition, because they've been really, since I've been doing this since 2011, been instrumental in helping me get more into evidence-based stuff. Point is that Marty Kendall was really explaining it's the preprandial blood glucose. So for instance, Lauren, I'm like, we have her in the morning doing her readings and doing this. And I realized, I said, holy shit, it's not about after, it's before. Because what we're doing here, and this is the reason, in my opinion, this is the Dylan theory, right? Is that we're overlapping energy by just little skins, right? So if your blood glucose is slightly elevated before you eat, you know what I've been doing? And I've been doing it for myself. I put on 10, 12 pounds over COVID on purpose to try and put on muscle. And now I'm taking it off. And it's hard, even for how much I train. The point is I've been using that method and I've been doing this for ages. And I'm like, I wait till my blood glucose gets to a kind of a set point level that I've discerned based on the data that I pulled in. And that's when I eat. So I'm letting my body, by proxy of energy and blood, tell me when another kind of bolus of energy by food. And then what I do is eat food that is essentially restrictive in glycogen because my body then is staying essentially ketotic without eating a ketogenic diet. Because let's remember, ketogenesis is a metabolic pathway, folks. It's not a diet. That diet was a therapeutic nutritional approach that was developed in the 30s for kids who were medically refractory to epilepsy and other like spastic conditions. And so subsequently that became, it's a fasting mimicking diet. So the way that we eat there, when we have no glycogen in our body sees it as a calorie restriction mimic, which means it's a copy. But anyways, I'm babbling, dude, like I'm going off here, but it's the approach would be look at glucose before you eat. Okay. And then if that number's elevated, just wait.
But for the average person that doesn't have a glucose meter, what's their deal? What are they going to do?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Most of us are walking around with a $1,000 cell phone. So to go out and get a glucometer from, there's a company that I use called Keto Mojo. The name's, a little goofy because, again, I don't like, keep it agnostic. But, if you just use a glucometer, and they can be as cheap as like $20 at CVS. It's just being systemic and being accountable. Now, what do you do in that moment? Let's quickly talk about the actionable. So you get a reading that's slightly elevated. I'm going to do 25 squats, air squats. And you're like, that's it. And I go, yep, it feels corny. It's sometimes awkward and goofy, but this is for my clients that really want that edge. Oh, you poor bastard, man. You've had a cold for a
month.
But so for my clients that are like, a lot of these guys I'm working with, they're former pro elite surfers, like athletes, like actors, blah, blah. They want the edge. They need it for work. So for me, before I go eat, I now just do like between 25 and 50 air squats. And I know it sounds like kind of goofy, but for shit, man, the people who listen to this ain't goofy, man. You guys get it.
Before you eat, not after you eat.
Yeah. Yeah. Because what's happening. So this is really interesting. There's, when we induce just simply the utilization proxies that go on in our body by asking and recruiting the energy system, it goes our bodies. And again, this is a theory, man, but it's really not, because basically what happens is that our cells open up. This is actually how insulin works. Insulin goes into our cells and it opens them up for more energy. What happens is insulin reception ultimately fails when our, adipocytes and our macrophages get so full of energy, they can't take any more. So then we have to take like super bolus amounts of insulin to induce, this hyperinsulinemia. And,
I think it was Matt Frazier was talking about how after his workouts, because he needs to replenish the glycogen, that he was just like downing Gatorade.
Oh, undoubtedly, dude. But that guy's, look, I'm 49, man. Like you and I are around the same age. Like my main deal is, muscle is the organ of longevity. Matt Frazier is one of the most elite athletes we've ever seen. Hey, CrossFit, he's not, but love CrossFit. Know that dude is a monster. He's elite, a tremendous athlete. Frankly, his body. So let's quickly talk about that. Like, why would that work for him and not work for someone else? We all own this really simple proxy of metabolic flexibility. And it's the term's kind of getting lampooned and overused, but it's actually true. We simply we would burn on a few energy substrates, but when it comes down to it, it's simply fat and it's sugar. We can burn on like lactic acid and pyruvate, and other things can reconvert in the Krebs cycle, but fundamentally it's fat and sugar. So for instance, like what I was saying earlier with Lauren, where it's like, hey, go do this protein sparing modified fast. What happens is we're going onto the side of the metabolic flexibility of no glycogen exposure. But what is glycogen? Glycogen is simply a chain of glucose. It gets put together and that's basically in abundance, and it gets stored in our liver, floats in our bloodstream, and is stored in our muscles. And there's, anecdotal sizes of that. It's like 30 grams in liver. It's like 5 grams in blood. And then it's between 300 and 500. So it doesn't matter, the exact number. It's more of the approximation. So what happens if we eat glycogen-rich foods, this is what people don't understand. 1 gram of glycogen is typically bound to 3 grams or 3.5 grams of water, maybe less for females. So when we sit there and we're like, oh shit, man, I went out and had a few drinks last night. I went hard on the carbs, and that's not bad. But the liability is that all of this glycogen you put on your body is now carrying water. So this is really fascinating. why doesn't the body just do that? Why doesn't it just keep the glycogen? Well, it's heavy. So our bodies are super efficient. So one of the I guess like the hypothesis is that the reason that the body turns around and turns them into triglycerides, so it takes, you know, the glycogen, and then it gets a glycerol molecule, combines it into a triglyceride, which is now a stored fat, also known as a cholesterol molecule, as a chylomicron. These things are all connected, and it stores it. So the energy density in a fat is way denser than anything else, and it doesn't have to carry the water. So if you think about it from that mechanism, man, this is the elegance and the beauty of the body storing fat. We are designed for this. So now we look at like, what's the problem? The problem isn't necessarily behavior. Okay, this is now like, so when I see a person who's obese or work with them, I'll talk to you and I'll be like, yo, fuck you, dude, your behavior is fucked. And you're like, I hope you don't say that to obese people. Not even close. Because that person's behavior is being driven by evolutionary drivers. For instance, prolactin. When we eat food, this is a trip. Okay, not to get crude, but when males get an erection, right, and we have, you know, we have sex. After we have sex, we typically go into like a nadir. You know, it's like the thing about smoke the cigarette. Oh, he passed out. You know, you bum, right? Joke.
Yeah.
But the deal is that this prolactin is a hormone that's an agonist to dopamine. It downregulates. Well, guess what? It happens in food. So the drivers of the reward system and this quote unquote limbic resonance, not only are these things attached into these sexual rewards, but they're also attached into foods. So when we eat a carb and we're like, you just feel your shoulders drop and you're like, oh my goodness.
So it's not,
that's prolactin. Yeah.
It's not satiating you. It's downregulating you.
Yeah. And so that's what's really interesting. So dopamine, I've been trying to get into the understanding of like, it's called hyperdopagenicity. So guys like you and I, as much as like we're untalented and not good looking, joking, but you and I we like to go, man. We like to like, I'm not going to lie about it. Like, don't fuck with me. I'm stepping up. I'm talking about like, you know, I like to be intense. You know, I like to go fast. And what is that from? Well, it's interesting that hyperdopagenicity is basically dopamine itself. It's a mitigator of stress. But there's also an opposing thing where it actually creates like a nociceptive pain. So, you know, it's the downregulation, and that happens to be associated, I guess, with the downregulation of serotonin. So, you know, when we have these moments of bliss or these excitements, right, you kind of get a little melancholy afterwards. I know I do.
We talk a lot in this episode about this company, and I don't know if there's more to say. Yes, there is, because if you're looking to excel at your next CrossFit competition, or you're just, you know, trying to optimize your workouts and feel better doing it, then you gotta check out Thorn and how it helps athletes from every background reach their potential. So Thorn, through personalized scientific wellness, they enable athletes to perform their best they address performance issues through testing, database solutions, and premium supplements. We've talked about this in the episode about how they've done all the work for you. I've done the work to find out about this company, and they've done the work to make sure that they have come out with the most comprehensive line of NSF certified for sport products on the market. If you're competing, you don't have to worry about getting popped. These are like they're just incredibly, I say it, I don't know if they like me say it, but to me, they're like the Lamborghini of supplements. Thorn is the unquestioned leader in quality, and they are, you know, innovative in sports nutrition. If you're like me and you don't want to trust your body to anything else, choose a supplement brand that has extensive third-party testing, the highest level of certification recognized in pro sports. Choose Thorn, the official nutritional supplement partner of CrossFit. Okay, so now, through our premier partnership with Thorn, all the members are going to get exclusive like anyone. If you go to WODcastPodcast.com, go to our site, go through our click-through, or use this click-through, you're going to get 20% off. I just ordered my NAC. I need tons of NAC. And I ordered it at thorn.com/u/WODcast. That's Thorn, THORNE.com/u/ when I say U, the letter U. So thorn.com/the letter U/WODcast to learn more. or go to our website, WODcastpodcast.com. We have a click through there and get yourself. I talk about beta alanine all the time. They have it there. So, like you guys, Matt Fraser talked about it, said it gave him a third lung. If you're looking to excel in this sport, get yourself some beta alanine. It's the best pre-workout out there. And, I can't explain what it is. I should have talked to Dylan a little bit about it during the episode, but this is basically what they explain, that during intense exercise, lactic acid builds up, which contributes to muscle fatigue and soreness. Beta alanine helps counteract this process by working to buffer the burn experienced during this intense activity, thus supporting your muscles and helping you go harder longer. Check them out. Again, thorne.com/U/WODcast. Get yourself some beta alanine. I use the creatine. I use their Moravia. It's their curcumin. I use their NAC. I love it. I love it, love it, love it. Check them out. Thorne, THORNE.com/U/WODcast. 20% off. Use it.
So now when we talk about hyperdopagenicity again, and these, anything that turns you up, right? Because I'm always hyperstimulated, right? I always get amped. Well, when I was a pro snowboarder and I was traveling, I'm doing World Cup and stuff, every time I came home, I would get depressed for 2 days.
Sure.
I had no idea, dude. I had my beautiful girlfriend here. I got my apartment down here in Squaw Valley. I had no reason. I just killed it. I came back from Europe. I'm like, every time. And then I noticed it wasn't just Europe. It would be here and there. So what's interesting is that myself traveling and my work, man, like I'm so into whatever I do. I'd go to Europe and I'd be so in it, and it would be so intense. I couldn't fail. I had to shoot good. I couldn't have a bad day. And the hyperdopagenicity, this thing that makes me go into these environments that scared the fuck out of me, right? I hate being judged, but I spent 20 years being judged, right? Because I was talking about that. I'm like, don't look at me, don't talk to me, but I'm in magazines.
Yeah.
So the thing is the things that drive us is this hyperdopagenicity that is a driver of sex, that's a driver of food, that's a driver of being driven. It's an evolutionary driver of everything. And now what's really interesting is I understand testosterone we've kind of, I think, distorted testosterone.
I would have blamed testosterone for that. I would have thought testosterone's the driver of that because look at me, I'm preening, I'm like showing that I'm alpha male, that I can jump off this, that I am strong, that I am bold, that I am, and that is going to be the driver of that, because the testosterone's going, hey, be a man, be this, attract the other sex, and the high comes along with it.
So as I understand, yes. So so imagine this. So this is, again, as I understand, testosterone is actually not, trip on this. So adrenaline in the body is adrenaline. Adrenaline in the brain is known as norepinephrine or noradrenaline. When we start talking about adrenaline captivating with the adrenal cortex and anxiety and stressors, like, look, you and I have always talked about anxiety. I've had the shit forever. You've had it on and off with work, and managed it, right? When we talk about anxiety, a lot of this thing I realized where I used to think it's like, oh, I'm fucked up. I'm not fucked up, dude. It's an evolutionary safety proxy, because if you get depression or anxiety, what's the evolutionary reason for it?
Yeah.
Well, what do I do, man? And how many times do you call me? You're like, I'm worried about you, dude. I am just in my world studying, dude. I'm just like, leave me the fuck alone, and I got to get through these clouds.
Anxiety.
Right?
I've always said that anxiety is excess fight or flight. It is your body's not using. You're not in real fear situations, and your body's got an overload of this because it's evolutionarily over years it's had a surplus of this, and you had to use it. You had to use it.
Well,
you're
talking about the thing. Well, we should bring that up. Remember I talk about hunt, kill, fuck proxy, like we're designed for that. But quickly, your point is, I agree with it, but let's turn that back. Instead of it being fight or flight, the fight or flight feeling of being like, hey, isolate, protect. Look, Eddie, we walk around bipedal. Our genitals are exposed. Our stomachs, our organs are exposed. We don't have claws. Our tools are thumbs and our brains, and the fact that we can orally communicate, and we can wolf pack. us in numbers is terrifying. Singularly, if I walked outside and a pack of dogs came after me, I'm fucked, dude. Like there's nothing I can do. So our brains being so much larger, I've tried to look at like, depression I've dealt with and, which fundamentally is related to TBI stuff, but it doesn't matter. The symptomology, it doesn't matter whether you have it from birth or, whatever's is why, if you're OCD, I got OCD, I'm going to use a motherfucker.
Yeah.
Straight up. Like why are these things there? And are they usable? Are they actionable? So, how I live. I keep my stuff. I'm like, I just use it. I didn't go to sleep till 3 last night. You know what I did? I'm like, oh, we're staying up. Guess what I did? I read, I studied. And then I have other days I'm like, I need to sleep. And I'm like, okay. Fortunately, my work allows me that. But back to the notion of it all is when we get depressed or have anxiety, for me, I want to isolate. So I'm walking around with my genitals and stomach exposed and basically very, culpable to dying quick, easily. And the truth is that I've got this thing that says, hey, alpha, hey, you're going to go kill animals the size of small houses and walk 30 miles a day. But guess what? I'm going to fuck with you enough. So statistically, as an organism, I need you to chill out a little bit. I need to ruin your endeavors by 60% because that other 40%, you're going to procreate or you're going to get out there. And I don't know. I just tried to take a more positive flip on, because, depression is the number one disease in the world, followed by Alzheimer's and then cardiovascular disease.
Jeez, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's gnarly, dude. There's the statistics, you can look at different spreads of it, but from a fundamental space, and cancer's got to be in there because I know more people have gotten sick from cancer than really anything else and being like, mortally. But yeah, man, the thing with depression and anxiety and stuff, shit sucks, man, but it's like we have to be culpable. There's a duty in it, man. Look, you've got kids. We could talk about like existential depression or anxiety, or what about, circumstantial and then physiologic, right? So I don't know. I try to keep it all like in context, man, because a lot of people are suffering it, but I look at other people and I'm like, look at how well you're doing. And I'm not saying you got depression and anxiety, but, with COVID, the kids, it's just awesome, dude. So I think, to anyone who's got, some shit out there, blessed to you and stuff. But also realize that it doesn't have to be a liability. You can use it.
Right. Well, so going back to where we started with this whole sugar talk and,
yeah. So back to Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah. Back to Pittsburgh. Me being in Pittsburgh, I was at a high school reunion. I was shotgunning 10 beers a night with my high school buddies. I was eating pizza. I was eating donuts. I was eating anything that was in front of me. And what do you do? Like, let's say you're in that situation. Do you go, oh, shit, I've just ruined myself, start over? Do I go, oh, I've got to
No. Okay, so let's put context in the real world. So you said it was, excuse me, but it was it was a major event, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you just said it. Was it what, a 20-year? How long was it?
It's just me and my buddies getting together.
But. Okay, so basically it's a reunion of sorts, right? So first off, you didn't need to shotgun 10 beers.
Yes,
I tell people this. I go,
yes, I did. Because my friend. Hold on. Let me justify this.
Yeah, all right. So
I was at a party. My friend, he and his wife are high school sweethearts. They had kids very young. Their kids are now college level, like. The girl's going off to college this year, and the son is a sophomore in college, and they had all their friends there, and I had to beat all the kids there with my shotgunning abilities, and I beat everyone up until
well done, sir.
Up until this kid that was like 6'6" just walked up, pushed everyone out of the way, bit the can with his mouth, then punched his thumb through. I tried to do the same thing, got my finger stuck in the can. Like my finger was in the can and I couldn't get it out and it was cutting me and I had to lean over.
Shotgunning bloody beer.
I had to lean over to one of my other friends and go, hey, can you stick your finger in here and push the can down? Because it's just going to like pull the skin off my finger. It's just going to like unsheath my finger if I pull it out, deglove it.
Horrific.
I'm like, please help me. And meanwhile, this kid just pierced it with his tooth, shoved his thumb in there, and shotgunned it in like record timing. He did beat me but it was just like a second. But he just so alphaed me. I mean, I just looked like a peasant.
Well, he's like 5 inches taller than you.
He also
Actually, more like 8. How tall are you?
he was like 8 inches tall. He like walked up and he was like, "Let me show you how this is done, old man."
Yeah, you got old wolf to young wolf. Like,
Yeah, but he
that's
crushed
funny.
me. He crushed me. And so, yes, to answer your question, yes, I did have to shotgun 10 beers because I had to show those kids that this man no pussy.
Well, I guess to be matter of fact though, let's say that really happens. You're like, hey, so Dylan, what do I do? I got to go in Rome and be Roman. I'm like, okay. What I would do for that straight up is I would take digestive enzymes before I eat it, because you're going to eat a huge bolus of like of everything, like, and bolus means like a medical. I use that word all the time. It's like, it just means a chunk, and I like being a geek, but it actually means more than that. But you're eating that much carbohydrate and stuff. So I would just eat quote unquote beneficials. The drinking event afterwards, what I would do, frankly, straight up, and I know you shotgun and this and that, but for people going out there, what I do is, like I told Lauren this, I said, just segment your drinks, have a budget. So what do? We go to events, is build a strategy, because look, the event's going to be amazing. If you want to get sloppy and drunk, hey, go ahead, man. We all like Tijuana, right? Then that's the case. Go hell for leather, but like at least have a sensibility of going, okay, tomorrow and the day after I go to work, or I got to be around family, or I got to be on point. So what I try to look at it is, I don't really do that stuff. It's just not in my interest, but I like pretty girls and I like going out. And so the thing is that I just put it in context where I'll have a drink and just be like, maybe I'm going to designate drive, or I'm just going to be, but I still have a drink. It's a clear tequila with a shot in it. I just go and I swill it.
Yeah.
And it's really cool, man, because I can keep my faculty and you never know who you meet. And
Okay,
I have the most wonderful conversations.
So what if you went overboard?
Pardon?
So what if, for the person like me that went overboard,
so afterwards, I would say, so we've N-Acetyl Cysteine is remarkable.
You love that.
Yeah, that stuff's fantastic. It's really what it does is it's a glutathione precursor, and it's actually one of the few things that it doesn't, nothing builds or improves the immune system per se, but what it does is it helps upregulate some things that do. So it's kind of I use it for people, for pretty much all of my clients. It's also really good for helping getting rid of fatty liver disease. So, when you're drinking, so let's quickly understand like what's happening with ethanol when you drink. If you guys are interested, you should check out a thing called the oxidative priority. So what the oxidative priority is, that the body has a structure, a way that it intakes things by priority. So remarkably, ketones, the first thing, if there's ketones in your body's going to want to burn that first. The second thing is ethanol. Ethanol, by proxy of the way it is in the body, it's like it can't deal with it. It's like it's a poison. So it just tries to excrete it fast as it can out of the liver, and then also convert it into, like, super convert into adipose. And the mechanisms are a little broader than that, but I guess, to keep it in layman's. Then the next thing is it goes, I believe it's protein, fat, and then carbs. I haven't looked at it in a while, but it's really interesting when I looked at that. So suddenly, if you think about it, it's like, well, I'm just not going to eat this and eat that. Well, if you're a person who's really ketogenic and you're eating tons of coconut oil that's rich in, these ketone bodies, what's happening is the oxidative process, you're not burning your own endogenous fat. That means your adipose stores. What's happening is all that fat that you're eating, your body's going to focus on that by proxy of the oxidative process and the fact that it's just is energy in the blood. And quickly on coconut oil, and these super, super saturated fats, they're what we call non sequitur to like the evolution of eating. So I just tell people, coconut oil is good for, frankly, lube for sex, maybe clean or wiping a pan, right? And I don't know. I tested it, and then like the bulletproof coffees and stuff. There's a lot of energy and fat that's going into those coffees, and then also MCT.
I've been hearing that from a lot of. I've had a couple other nutritionists on, two in particular, that said the same thing. That like they're like, I don't know.
Is that right?
Yeah, they were like, I don't know how coconut oil became like a health food. They're like, it's really
well. How did ketchup or bacon? If you look back, this is around the period of time when we were talking about sugar earlier. This is when the Ansel Keys study came out, and Dwight D. Eisenhower. This is really interesting what happened, because I think the same shit's going on now. Is that our president had a heart attack. He was the first president to have a heart attack in the media diaspora, right? And at the same time, we had these growing, burgeoning companies in the industrial food production, right? So, for instance, pork bellies. They had like, people didn't really eat that much pork, so they did, the same people who did ketchup, as I understand, is they they started doing a flex on bacon and how like bacon is part of a good breakfast, some crazy stuff like that, man. And so suddenly bacon become like, and it tastes super good, and people are like, well, it's good for you, and back in the day, then TV was nascent, advertising was like, no way. They told me that bacon's good. They told me that to smoke a cigarette's good for like my lungs, it opens up my lungs. So that became part of our social, and then same with ketchup, as I understand, ketchup was like a commodity food. And they're like, dude, we're wasting a lot of tomatoes.
And a lot of sugar. It's full of sugar.
We do with them. Yeah, well, ketchup yeah. So to that be said, like, sauces and condiments, I hate sounding like a kook or, you say, be strict with self and, forgivable with others. But 49% of all hidden sugars are in condiments. And yeah, so it's like, you want to be careful with that. When I go eat and people are like, oh, I couldn't do that, I ask them why, because I take MCT oil. I have a little bottle of it. I get this salt called Redmond salt from Utah. So there's no plastics in it, which is something to be concerned about, in my opinion, no microplastics. And I'll just bring that, and I'll just take lemon and I put it on everything. The lemon's just the citrate. It's just really good on the palate. The MCT oil is actually known as palm oil. And what people don't understand is that this is actually put into food. The reason we have it in food is that it's a flavor enhancer. So a lot of us eat, grass-fed and like really gamey meat. And unfortunately, I like to overcook my meat. I'm a little weary of undercooked meat, frankly. And so, you get these meat that's dry. You put a little bit of MCT oil on it, and it's wonderful. Yeah, it's really wonderful.
What I'm a big fan of is using Primal Foods mayonnaise, which is avocado mayonnaise.
Yeah, that stuff's great. And actually, I wanted to say something about that. Mark Sisson, I'm proud of you, dude. Good for you, man. Like that guy, he and actually I want to bring this up because there's some people out there in the world that are really gnarly right now. They're calling people out. And Mark, that guy was really to this day, I look at a lot of his research. I'm a mini Mark Sisson, which probably would sound arrogant. He's a citizen scientist whose passion and endeavors into health and wellness and his performance, is just tremendous. It's like Arthur Devaney.
He's changed
That's
the
another
world.
Guy.
Mark Sisson's the kind of guy that
he
changes
sold his
the
company
world.
for $770 million.
Yeah, it's enough that you open pantries all over the place and you see his products and you go, hey, this is good. No longer are people using salad dressings with palm oil in them or these bad vegetable oils. People have, they're using olive oil. They're using and it's thanks to him, and he's got the products out there. I use one of his salad dressings, or I use a barbecue sauce that's like hot wing sauce. That's like, I can get that taste that I used to love, and I know I'm not eating margarine.
Let's talk about that real fast, because when we eating these foods, we get so caught up, and I really, my whole thing with the food thing, and I tell you about this, and with Lauren, man, it's been the mainstay of our conversation, as it is with all my clients. It's not about like the quality of foods that we're eating, because the quality of foods and the way that they drive cravings are together. So I sit there and I'm like, hey, I don't want to put on when I go, hey, that's shit food. Don't eat it. You're better than that. Like, that's not cool. That doesn't work. It's like, it's actually my notion. Like, I don't want to talk to people about pathogenesis. I want to talk to them about this thing called salutogenesis. So pathogenesis is like the things that are going towards, pathology means disease. Salutogenesis was actually a notion of like the opposite. What are we doing that bolsters and builds wellness? And just a fascinating notion. It's like, fuck, everyone's tripping on insulin. Let's make insulin low. And I'm like, no, insulin doesn't mobilize and oxidize fat. I was telling you about this, and like, everyone's using the blood glucose meters and this and that. Hey, blessings, but y'all looking for the wrong data. Insulin driven low, and then adding a stimulus into the body by energy demand, work capacity, walk-in, time task, CrossFit, whatever it is, or running, surfing. Glycogen, or rather glucagon, is going to activate from the same place that insulin comes from, the pancreas. So when this turns on, the mechanisms that go on in that is that it goes into our adipose and basically says, hey, I need to recruit you. And then mobilizes fat. And then if we're really in a good process, then we oxidize, because there's a difference between mobilization and an oxidation. So as I understand, the way that it goes in is the way that it comes out. And what's ironic about it, when we eat foods, back to triglycerides that are chylomicrons, that's the fifth smallest particle of cholesterol, right? These things are surrounding these organic matter. We take food, I take a piece of food, like the said donut, eat it. How does that get into my body? How am I taking things in a hydrophobic and a hydrophilic environment and allowing this to mitigate and go into a body where if I put a splinter in my finger, what happens? It gets swollen, red. Maybe I get a little bit like sebaceous kind of lesion thing. What we take food and kind of the same context, and we literally open our mouths and it goes in our body. The body's beautiful elegance of using cholesterol to put a waxy surround on these substances as they are broken down into molecules that small, and to disperse them is what cholesterol is responsible for. But then cholesterol also, so for instance, vitamin D, right? We're walking outside and most surfers, trip on this, bro. Most surfers are fucking vitamin D deficient, especially here in California.
Because of wetsuits and zinking our faces.
Well, yes and no. Do you trip on this, man? It's actually not the case. So it's remarkable. So apparently, and hopefully I got this right, we need to get, it has to be like the 35th azimuth. So in order for us to get sun that has the spectrum in it, for us to turn around and develop what we call cholecalciferol, right? So what happens is the sun rays go into our bodies. We have this basically nuclear reaction. Cholesterol takes it and converts it into this stuff called cholecalciferol. And that's where we get our main, that's where we get vitamin D3 from. So now vitamin D2, by the way, we can. Yeah.
So why are the surfers deficient?
So again, forgive me. So back to the 35th azimuth, the sun doesn't get to the 35th azimuth till like 11 or 12 o'clock where we live, Eddie. So we're not getting.
We surf before that. We're out of the water by that time.
Or in the afternoon. But so now what's interesting though is like, not to be contradictory, I tell all my clients, I'm like, hey man, get the fuck outside. We got heliotherapy, helio being sun, and therapy. Why do we want to do that? Well, we know that blue light is an instigator of our circadian pattern. A circadian pattern, we always talk about that being our sleep pattern. Now, our circadian pattern is actually our day pattern, kind of. Like that's not kind of, but it's the day pattern. We want to trigger that. So that's why I tell you, I'm like, if you can lay off the coffee, after, around 11 to 12, it's not so much that the caffeine's driven you. It's just a stimulation that's gone in the circadian pattern. And the body, is always in adaptive homeostasis. Mm-hmm. So you're triggered up, you're triggered down. And so for instance, I drink coffee all day, man, at like 5 o'clock, I'm like literally like drooling on myself, passed out studying, and then it's like 1 a.m. and I'm just like, over here fucking having a party by myself. It's like
scratching your skin like you're a meth head.
Well, not quite, but I could. Yeah, we're not that bad. It is Venice, but don't tell anyone.
Okay. So,
So I want to talk about salutogenesis and the pathogenesis though, because here's the deal. Like we are so caught up in like these little binaries, right? Well, I do this and I do that, man. I told people, I said, don't get married to the stimulus, get married to the adaptation. Like I'm over here, like, I don't give a fuck what I'm doing. I give a fuck about the results. Excuse the language. Like, so the thing is like, Eddie, you're significantly different. You in your build, right? You're super fight or flight guy, but then you're also a savage. You're a masochist. Like you in pain, like you do wacky stuff where I'm like, I'm not really like, by the way, he invites me out for the run, and I'm like, oh, well, my goodness. I go, how unfortunate. I have a client. Hey, Dylan, you want to do this? And I'm like, that's weird. I have a booking. It's 4 months ahead from now. And I'm like, that's unfortunate because I just booked. No, but credit to you, man. But so the thing is, it's like, you're running on this psychological and this like zeal and this passion you have for doing extraordinary things like that. When we look at people, I couldn't tell you to eat the same way that I would tell your wife. And that's why what I do isn't a tear sheet. And I think anyone who says that they're like a keto coach or, a vegan coach or like a type of, it's like saying, well, I only shoot pictures as a photographer of trees.
Yeah, I see.
Be like, well, dude, you know what I mean?
It's like saying, I hear people saying music, I only like rap music, or I only like country. And I'm like, really? You're missing out on all that amazing music all over the world. And you're just so narrowly focused and you're that narrow-minded that you can only enjoy that kind of music. I get it. That might not be a great analogy, but I do see it as saying, because we all know there's different bodies and we all deal with food differently, and and you got to be able to be flexible. And this all started from me talking about like, how do I clean myself up after destroying myself for 4 days straight. And is there a way, sometimes I used to think, oh, I could get away with murder because I'd go out, I'm so active and I move so much that I'm probably burning so much glycogen that it doesn't matter. But then I wonder about the inflammation. If you're not burning the glycogen, are you still getting the inflammation from the sugar?
Yeah.
Let me say that again. If you are burning the glycogen, are you still getting the inflammation?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So that's
Yes.
my greatest fear.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one, Eddie, and that's called age-ending glycations. It's called being glycated. So, for instance, man, like I was a pro athlete. I competed for 23 years. I skied at the Winter Sports Club in Steamboat Springs. I mean, I've been so blessed to be trained and work with like really elite coaches, like World Cup, for my skiing days, and that's kind of what got me into all of the things I'm in now. And what I noticed back then is like a lot of these guys would drink, and my parents drank and this and that. And what I've noticed is with lipofuscins, that's that shit, man. When your granddad's like, he's got that weird brown spot on his face. A lipofuscin is basically a dermal form of glycation. Glycation being like your sun, that event where the sun's hitting, 35th azimuth, all the shit I just talked about, but it's getting to your skin, and literally the sugar that's in there is browning. And it's so weird, man, because they don't explain it like that. They say, oh, it's a liver spot or it's a sunspot. And I'm like, that's what it is. What is the how? What is the why? And then it's so what do we do for that though? Like, it's not about, I eat sugar every night. I have my blueberries, I have some dark chocolate. That's part of what I call my hedonic programming, right? It's so back to your, being the disciplined and like eating, it's like I tell people that we need to live with exception and not discipline. Exception means I'm just removing some. Discipline means I know and I'm not and I can't and I won't. There's zero flexibility in discipline. I like discipline, but discipline is always with an exit plan. I'm not Catholic, right? I just did Lent. Me and my mentor and I just did Lent for 46 days. So I won't tell you what I didn't do, but if I told you, I mean, no sugar, no girls, no nothing, man. Like straight up. And it was really interesting to do it because I'm not a pious guy like that, being religious, but it was pretty radical, dude. And that's not for everyone. Whereas other people, so for instance, in your case, exception just means I'm going to go ahead and just like delete a little bit. So for instance, when you go to you see your friends and stuff, what I suggest is just have a strategy. If you're going to go that hard, then go that hard. But the following 3 or 4 days, have your NAC, get your nutrition the next day, make sure your potassium's on point, make sure your electrolytes are good, make sure that your essentials are all on point. If I did that, I mean, even before this, man, I took some fish oils. I haven't eaten yet. I mean, it's, I typically fast till about 2 every day. And, but I'll do things that kind of promote, they're beneficial. They're salutogenic, right? And, they're, the biohack thing, that term is like, is cool. And to all my biohacker friends, mad respect. But I look at a lot of them and it's like, they've glossed over the fundamentals. And, and the thing is, Eddie, I think I told you this, shout out to CrossFit, man. That shit changed my life. The bottom line is the CrossFit triangle, though, is what changed my life. Because I always was at the top. I was sport. I was always getting paid, or sponsored rather, and then paid. And then as it came down, I'm like, okay, gymnastics, Metcon, this, and the bottom, the motherfucker's nutrition. And actually, a shout out to Dr. Eric Goodman from Foundation Training, because it was him and his wife where I was here having lunch with them, and he goes, "Why are you so intense about just one thing? What if you took this and you spread it out?" And I literally walked out of there and I felt like someone just like.
What was he saying was the one thing?
Well, at that point in time, Eddie, so this is when I was doing CrossFit Strongman, and that's actually you and I had been friends for 2-3 years. And, I wasn't a fat CrossFitter, I was like 250 and just, but no, it was powerful because, I love that guy so much, and he's always given me he's tendered the most honest opinion. And this is, by the way, this is when I was 40. So this is 9 years ago, actually. I remember I just turned 40 and he's like, dude, you're going too hard. You're going to fucking destroy yourself. And I was like, no, I'm not. And also, another thing too, I had a career as a pro snowboarder for over a decade. A lot of us athletes, and I know we talked about it with you, man, it's like, it's whether you're elite or this or whatever, if you're that competitive, that all of us kind of succumb to like a post era depression. You know, like I competed for 23 years straight, and dude, I used to throw up and cry and like all this weird shit, man. But I mean, talking about it, it's like, whoa,
Yeah, it's tough
you
to
get tripped
it's
out.
tough
It's
to
like,
come off it. Yeah, I know.
yeah, it's gnarly, dude. So it's like that's why now, you know, it actually goes back to like the prolactin and these hormones and the testosterone, the driver, the adrenaline. Dude, I'm built to hunt, bro. Look
Yep.
how
Yep.
I'm built genetically. Same with you, Eddie. Like we're not. You know what's so awesome about you, dude, is like you know, obviously, you know, you're one of my best friends and stuff, but to hear about the chonk, you know, little baby Cruz and your daughter and stuff, and to hear you evolve and change literally genetically by voice, dude, to hear how important certain things are now versus what they were is like so awesome, dude. It's such a beautiful thing to hear you fathers and like mothers kind of like see that shift, because there's just like this genetic maturity that you guys,
Yeah,
you
it
know, and I don't have
kind of
kids, you know,
sucks.
and it's like it's
I
awesome.
explain it to people. I go, when I was, 15 years ago, I liked to go to a strip club. Now, if I went into a strip club, I'd be like looking at the girl and be like, "Hey, get down from there. You have a father. You need to stop
Yeah.
that." Yeah, there's something
Yeah, I don't
fatherhood does to you.
I think it's more than that though. It's like I know that's I mean, I think it's deeper, dude. It's like there's like a profundity, as the word is. Like it's just it's so cool. And also, you know, another thing too, man, like you do such a good job of it. You and your wife, like what a cool family. Like yeah, so I don't know, man. I mean, I'm not trying to jerk you off or nothing, but it's just cool. It's really awesome to see how you embraced it too. Cause I was like, you know, and then also COVID, man, like the way that you guys dealt with it, and was like, it's really been, it's, I always tell Lauren that she gets like flustered and this and that, or she's, you know, she'll be in her cycle and feeling grumpy. And I'm like, hey, lady, come on. And it's like, no, you guys are rad. And I love seeing you guys grow and develop as a family. And it's really been cool because it hasn't, you've made that more important than your career. You made that important than everything else, but you're still growing with all your other stuff. And that's really awesome, dude, because I see a lot of people kind of like diminish their health. Actually, frankly, the only place that I could say as a friend where I'd be like, you know, like, let's fuck with the food, man. Let's get a little more dialed there.
Yeah,
Let's look at this 50 thing.
my food
You know,
used to be much better, and it's escaped me a bit.
can I be honest with you, Eddie? In the context of me, you know, evolving and growing, I don't think your food's ever been that good because it's never been consistent. And I mean that with love, dude. Like, so let's quickly talk about like what would these fundamentals, you know, some actionables with people. All of us are tripping on carbs. We're eating too little carbs and not enough protein.
Too many carbs.
The renal, yeah, we're eating, no, too little carbs.
What?
Yeah, dude, I know I'm keto guy and stuff, but we're eating too little carbs. Look, the carnivore movement, zero carb, right? This used to be something that to me was ubiquitous to people who are what are called metabolically deranged. This is a clinical term for people whose metabolisms are so fucked that they meat and water. I was fascinated by this. And then what's weird, as soon as it became prevalent, you had people and they're like, yeah, I'm going ZC. That's what it used to be called. And then you had, you know, people like Sean Baker and Paul Saladino, you know, they just hyped it up and like, hey, good for them, man. We all want to have our thing and you know, make a few chips and pay the bills. But what's happened is that this carnivore thing has gone into a space that's really cool, frankly, and it works. I got one client, I took 60 pounds off him using a carnivore diet. But we want to be really careful though, because enzymatically, it's kind of like dairy, right? If we don't eat certain things, our body will like, it'll become like almost a little bit prohibitive. Like you suddenly eat it in the old way you did. So, yeah, it's kind of gnarly. Here's a story. I worked with an actor on a movie that actually hasn't premiered yet. And shout out to Scott Hayes, called Antlers by Guillermo del Toro. And Scott came to me and my friend Josh Brolin called me, just a friend. I've never worked with him, but he's the raddest guy. And Josh, love you, brother. Like, so he called me and goes, hey, I got a friend and this could be really good for you. And I was like, dope. Like, what do you got? And I knew that this was going to be like a Jehovah Ray moment or like the spotlight on me. And he goes, yeah, you think you can do this? And I'm like, yeah, well, what was it? So the guy comes to me, he was 203, he got down to 186 and he had 60 days till he had to get on set. And basically the character arc, I guess is what it's called. I don't really know all the terms, but the storyline or whatever is that he is a Wendigo spirit or a Wendigo demon bites him. He's a coal miner in West Virginia. And he's an addict, but he's also a really dope dad. No pun intended, but like a really good father. And so the movie's about just a horror movie. And so he has to go through this journey of losing weight.
Right.
So we film parts. And so what I did with him was I actually took a study that was about a gentleman named Angus Barbieri from Scotland, who I believe it was 382 days that he fasted. And he lost, I believe it was like 300 pounds, something remarkable.
Jeez.
And yeah, forgive all the specifics, but he was put in a metabolic ward. And that research, I took that because I understand ketogenics, after doing it for a decade now that well. So what we did is we put him on what I called nutritional starvation ketosis. So no training, no gym, just walking. We need to really mitigate the stressors that was going on in his body, because in that state, your body's in a hyper stress state. When you're in calorie deficiency, even by a small margin, it's in a stress state. So I just had him walk, but this guy, Scott, man, he's so radical. I'm like, hey, you just got to walk. So the psycho gets an Uber. He lives up on Hollywood. He was getting an Uber to the Santa Monica Pier and walking home.
Jeez.
See, yeah, people don't know about some of these actors, man. It's always like this thing of like, they're this and they're that. And I go, no.
What did he drop from? What did he drop from 200 and?
Oh, so forgive me. So yeah, he was 203. He got himself to 186,
so
or rather it was like 183.
So
but he got up to
180. 17 pounds. That is.
Yeah, that's on his own. But he was eating like a Cliff Bar and bag of peanuts.
I did that with diarrhea.
Well, trip on this. This is what happened though. So in 60 days, so I got with him, and it was really intense, man. Because I'm going to be honest about the experience here. Like, I'm just coming up in the game, right? And I know a lot of cool people, but to have people invest in you, go, okay, I'm doing a major movie, and you're a dude who CrossFitter, you work in a surf shop, and you've got a lot of concussions, and you used to be a cool pro snowboarder I don't know of. Who are you?
Yeah.
Straight up, man. That's me. So when I worked with him, I knew it was an epiphany moment in my life. And I just sat there and I'm like, can I do this? And I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? I'm not ready. I'm prepared. Or I'm not wanting this. I'm prepared. So I basically cleared all my other clients and just focused on it. And what was really remarkable is that he went on set, and he was in 47 days, he lost 48 pounds.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So he went on set to 137 pounds.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's like my numbers, I think I could be, but it was 137. He walked on set 137, and he was still losing. And by the way, was happy, had energy, felt good, his cognition. So now here's the true part of the story is that in Scott's journey afterwards, and this is what happens with us, we get addicted to fasting.
Wow.
The norepinephrine, and like you get the vibes, because calorie restriction is a stressor. Look, everything that we do is beneficial to the body. The body turns around and gives us rewards. Not to be weird, but let's talk about sex. You're taking a digit from another body. If I take 2 fingers and stick it in my ear, it doesn't feel good. If we're taking body parts and putting them in other body parts, it's like, if you really, really think about it, it would hurt. The minute we do that, it feels good. What happens when we eat food?
You froze at a very important time. After you stuck digits in someone's ear. But you said if we stick body parts in other body parts.
So you would think, I'm not even being silly or goofy. Like, if we're talking about putting body parts in other body parts, there would be a tremendous pain, right? Like, if you eat food that's hard and you bite down on it, you're like, ah.
Yeah, there are some body parts that if you stick a body part in, it hurts though.
Yeah, right. So let's not talk about that trip to Thailand, Eddie. Stop. This is, there's, but no. So the thing is that these things. So for instance, eating food, you're taking organic mass, eating it, chewing it up and swallowing it. And somehow there's a reward construct in there that our brain by evolution has developed a limbic resonance to some foods that are super high in energy that'll get stored as fat, not in water, right? Can get stored as fat. So I think I talked about this last time I was on the podcast that there's an event. I guess it's like in the paleontological and anthropological story that we had this event called scheduled obesity. So every year we would get like we would gain 4 to 6 pounds of fat during a particular time of season, being the driest part of the seasons, which was typically like the late spring. So berries are abundant, food, it's like, and then we put on that weight, and then that would take us through like the dry part of the summer. It's something like that, man. And it's basically fascinating because that 4 to 6 pounds that we are supposed to gain every year, we would burn off. What's happened to us now is that we're in a weird cycle, gaining that 4 to 6 pounds every year, but we never lose it. So if you spread that out like over the chronological data, it equates to about like 1% of body fat per year after the age of 30.
Yeah, I got you. Okay, let's
Yeah.
go. I want to go back because we don't have a lot of time, but I want to talk about some things you mentioned that we didn't finish on. NAC.
Oh, please.
NAC, you were saying, like, I get the thing. Like, people are like, they said it a lot during COVID. You can't boost your immune system. You can just get your immune system up to like a good level, like what it should be. You can't boost it like that. You have like this super immune system, and I never thought that's what NAC was for. It was for your immune system. And you were explaining to me like I was talking to a pulmonologist the other night at my reunion, a buddy of mine that's a pulmonologist, about NAC and if he recommends it to patients because of its lung
What did he
function.
say?
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. It's known as forgive me if I'm not pronouncing it right, a mucolytic. So it's typically given for kids with cystic fibrosis and that's why I was telling you, so in why do I take it? Well, it's known as a mucolytic, an anxiolytic, and then it's also it's really good for the liver and in promoting, basically fat breakdown. It like helps the liver emulsify fatty liver oils. Why do we want that? The liver is like the primary battery of energy in the body. If you guys are keeping your livers clear and clean, the pancreas is going to go out there and start managing the insulin and the glucagon to oxidize or store fat better. That's like how it works. That's why with folks, I'm like, hey, we're not going to train. We're just going to eat foods and we'll slowly bring back the glycogen, exposure. Make sure that they're having the hedonic reward, like with your wife, I said every night. And typically most people are like, you know what? I don't even want anything. And that means what's happened here is that their appetite hormones being ghrelin and leptin and their limbic resonance being the hedonic rewarded feedback is narrowed. And their ghrelin has gotten quieter and leptin resistance has improved. And that's it, dude. And
so this comes with just taking NAC.
No, well, sorry, I went a little sideways there, but NAC promotes that. So that's why I will have clients take soy lecithin. I'll have them take NAC. I'll have them take another thing called choline. All of these things have this type of
choline
effect
does
on
that
the
too,
liver.
because I took choline for a little bit. I think on your recommendation, the NAC, like we're lucky enough at the podcast here, and I tell people like in the advertising that Thorne is one of our advertisers, and
they're so good, dude.
And
I want to quickly talk about those guys. Because we talked about it. The thing with Thorne is that they sell it around here, and it is more expensive. But the deal with them, there's a couple companies that sit in that strata, and they are very, very particular about the way they build their stuff, with exception. I love using that word. So the thing is that they're almost like a pharmaceutical grade. So, and by the way, I want to hook up, dude. I need some NAC. So holla.
Yeah, I mean, they're great. And they do. I'm not doing an ad right now. I'm just talking about how good they are and that we do have a 20% discount. But
no, they're good though, dude. I see,
relevant that they're supporting the
podcast.
Seek them out because I had heard Dr. Rhonda Patrick talk about them. I had heard someone else. I think it was Peter Attia. Somebody was talking about Thorne, and so I started doing my research, and I saw, okay, people would rank a supplement, and they would do research on like 5 or 10 and say these are our best.
Well, let's distill what is that? We have the EGMP, certification, and then I believe it's it's NFC. So these are standardizations. So the truth is like Thorne, Doctor's Best, Pure Encapsulated. These brands are really at the I guess the gold standard, if you will. But yeah, Thorne's excellent. They and also it's cool that some of these brands like they kind of support it because of the FDA and stuff. Not a lot of companies can kind of explain the mechanisms and things of what they do, but some of the companies do a little bit better job of that. But frankly, I'll be honest with you, the supplements that we should take should be beneficial and not our fundamentals. That's why, people like, what do you do for a protein shake? And I'm like, salmon, 4 ounces, steak.
Yeah.
And that goes back to this thing, this protein digestibility, comprehensive amino acid score. When we start looking at things like you can go to a list and be like, what's the best protein? You can be like, you can go to fats and go, what are the best fats? I really encourage people to get more binary with it, man. Cause it's like, well, I heard of this. Dude, pork has got the highest nutrient density of fat. Red meat's got the highest protein density of it. Like everything has like a face and it's kind of like a Dungeons and Dragon die, And so I just tell people go simplistic. And then also don't be uptight, man. Like relax. Like, look, CrossFit's evolved for me. I don't do main site programming like you used to, but we're allowed to evolve, man. And I mean, y'all going to be a day older or a week older when you hear
so
this.
back
like,
back to NAC. Why
yeah.
is it being taken off the shelves? Like
Oh,
apparently there's like a war on NAC.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a war. So as I understand, and I looked this up, and forgive me for not articulating specifically, but what had happened was that NAC was allowed into the marketplace, but it was under different auspices. So it was actually it was like a real deal clinical drug that was built and somehow got into the retail of being off label, as it's called. And so what happened is the FDA has come out and just they're reevaluating it, and that's basically what's going on. So in Amazon, in their, it's funny how it's being pulled off the market. Not the case. Walmart still sells it. I've actually stocked up on a little bit. But what Amazon is doing is just out of a fiduciary sensibility and just responsibility. They're like, okay, we don't need to. And I think they do that with a lot of, I could be wrong about that, but they do that. Like, it's not just NAC, but NAC, for instance, I take 3,000 milligrams a night. There's some really good studies that I looked into, human studies, human trials, that for 3,000 milligrams a night, it's a good anxiolytic for like OCD and like the stuff like that, which unfortunately I got to deal with. It's also really, really insane. I've had issues with like from just, fight days and combat sports and stuff. Like I had tapeworm and stuff that went away. I've had some other like candida issues and, we're all normal, gone away. The stuff is really interesting. And it's really, remember, it doesn't make our immune system better. It just, it helps it like, it just gives it a little bit of,
yeah.
Well, I'm concerned about you though, Eddie. So what was the dose we had you at? I was suggesting 2,000 a night, right?
What's in the pill, in the Thorn?
So frankly, I don't have the Thorn. I'm not familiar with the ingredients.
I take the Thorn one, and I don't know what it is, how many milligrams it is, but I just do.
That's one. Okay. So for you, brother, I'd recommend that they typically it's 1,500 milligrams. Apparently, has like I take it if you get sick and you want to like clear up. So here's the deal: if you're traveling and you get really like chesty and grim, take some NAC. If your stomach gets affected, take a charcoal tablet rather. And these little and then
I'm
also
looking,
like jet lag.
I'm looking right now to see what it is. Doesn't here? I'm looking on the back.
Sometimes they'll put like selenium with it.
500 milligrams is one tablet, and that's all I take is one a night.
Is there anything else with it? Is there anything else that's bound?
I don't think there's any ingredient other than that in it. Let me see. Oh, here.
Do you find that the pills smell that one thing that people don't like about it is that it's actually a sulfur amino compound, I think is what they call it.
It's got hypromellose, which is derived from cellulose.
That's for the capsule. That's
right.
in the gelatin cap, I believe.
It's got leucine, leucine. Isn't that an amino acid?
That's an amino. Yeah.
And then,
that's leucine is been said to like, I used to take it when I was like vegan, that it's supposed to like help with like improve like blood health, which I don't know if is
and it's got,
I don't think so.
And it's got silicon dioxide.
Yeah, that's the white. So silicon dioxide is on it, or silicon dioxide and then titanium dioxide is the white coloring. So I think those things are probably in the cap. But yeah, the NAC thing, real fast too, is like, do you want to take it at, ad libitum as much as you want? No. What I tell people is that we want to cycle. So for instance, I was getting a lot of bruises from doing the blood flow restriction stuff with wearing the blood flow cuffs. And for some reason I started getting bruises, and I recently stopped eating red meat. Like for some reason, I'm like, so I'm now eating like way more fish. So I started getting weird bruises all over my legs and stuff. And I just take liver pills, every 3 days, and within a week, boom, gone. So we don't need, like, I have one client who's just brought me on, and his blood work, man, his B12 levels in his blood, I was like, dude, send me a list of his stuff. And I love you guys, man. Like, Johnny, you're awesome. But my goodness, the neurosis and the focus we put on our supplementation, it's like, I told him, I said, I'm going to save you $150 a month. And he was like, yeah, it's really cool though, man. I mean, I love how focused and how in love we are with our health. I just don't like or I shouldn't say don't like, but I trip on how it's so tribal and how we get so like, so into it. Like, I love you all. You know what a real battle is? It's not vegan or keto. It's not carnivore. It's age. And I want to talk about that. Like the anti-aging thing. If anyone tells you anything anti-aging, tell them to fuck off. Do we start aging at the day we're born? It's about health span. It's about longevity. And it's interesting because Eddie, you and I are now like, I'm 50 next year. I just turned 49.
Old as
Dude, I've
fuck.
never been
Old as fuck.
Yeah, but it's weird though, man. Like people, well, I don't feel this and that. Dude, I feel all of it, but I feel good, man. I'm like, I have a body now. I'm fitter than I was when I was 25. Like we're going snowboarding. We're going to Austria in April? Is that,
Yep.
That's when your gig's out there? Like,
yep.
So I'm just so inspired and motivated. But really the only thing, Venice. The only thing that's really got me tripped out straight up is, I'd like to have my hair fuller, but no, isn't
it amazing with all the money and all the science that they have not figured that out other than
you grow the
follicles.
shit in your ears, it grows on your back and it falls off your head. Like that's indecent. God, I want to talk to you. Can we set up a meeting?
I really believe that there is some like evilness in this world that makes that happen. Because they've done like studies of women, like showing them pictures of men, and it's always the better hairline, which is funny, because usually baldness is a sign of high testosterone. Am I correct?
Can be. It is, and it's like there's elevated levels of this stuff called DHT.
Yeah,
and the hormone thing, dude. I could do enough.
Right, so it's like, why is it though that the most, like, if you look at sometimes there's a very feminine man that has this strong hairline, and it's like a feminine quality almost, and yet women are attracted to that.
Well, we'll trip on this. It's like something that I've read about. So I've worked with transgender athletes. I've worked with transgender clients before. So that's why kind of a lot of the narrative about like, we're all like, I can be a woman or a man. I'm like, no, we can identify with whatever we want. But when we get into the fundamentals of like, no, you can't, you need, if I give a woman 5 to 10 milligrams of DHEA, dude, she's going to be super horny and grow a mustache. I'm joking, by the way, but no, I'm joking, but I'm not. If I give 50 milligrams to a dude, nothing happens.
Uh-huh.
So it's like there's such, a woman's follicular, the ovulation phase, the luteal phase, like a woman's cycle, and the way that progesterone, zenith to nadir, and the testosterone elevates and estrogen fluxes. Like, man, we don't know what the fuck's going on. Like us guys, we got it so good. And so I don't know. It's I don't even know where I was going with that. But yeah, the back to the NAC thing, man, is just like with all supplements is take them in staggered consideration. Another thing too is if you're taking something, I hope y'all are tracking your stuff. www.chronometer.com. It's my go-to. Input your data there as well. A lot of us are taking stuff that we're over layering. Remember, my disposition is the liver, which is the most dynamic organ in the body, straight up. Like you can cut 60% of the thing off and it's still going to grow back. It can put up with Eddie Ift's college drinking when he's 49. So the thing is like, if the liver is like, you're giving it the things, you're honoring it and stuff, but you just give it a little bit of break. You don't go too hard. I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of losing my train of thought there, but the bottom line is just the liver. If that's the primary where we look at, that's your starting place. Because from there, also the liver.
You're saying stagger. When you mean stagger the supplements, because you could be overlaying, like
least effective dose, my man.
Yeah.
Least effect. Well, so here's another thing. We were talking about hormones, and I was talking about how I have a client, right? So I work with a lot of clients who are on TRT. I've worked with clients who are getting off TRT. I'm no hormone expert, but just by proxy of my work, I'm like, I want to know about it. I had a client where we changed the deployment of his injections to be more consistent with what is the natural production of a male. So I never knew what the natural production of a male is, but it's between 3 and 7 milligrams a night. So in the course of a week, we can look at 46 to 56 milligrams and maybe in an outlier population. So typically doctors, they, 1 ml a week, right? And that person will take it. Well, then what I looked at in the research is that when you take any exogenous hormones, it's the serum dose goes up like 400%. So if you take a milligram a week, and I was just like, that's not consistent with like how humans are, with the zenith and nadir being like the pulses of hormones going up and down with sleep. This guy's he was on TRT for 10 years, and I had him change his deployment and just did his nutrition. This guy's 56. His hormone levels doubled. I told you about this, bro. Like, I got the data. It is, his doctors are just like, what?
Just out of when he took it. So you changed.
Yeah, just by changing the deployment. So what does that mean? So I had him start. I said, hey, would you consider microdosing it? And that seems to be like in the contemporary conversation of hormone replacement therapy for males. That seems to be the one. And when you do that too, these you got to take these things called AIs, which is aromatase inhibitors, right? An aromatase inhibitor is basically, if you have a lot of free floating testosterone in your body, what happens is that if it doesn't get bound to this thing called sex hormone binding globulin, it's ineffective.
My sex binding hormone globulin, I can't even pronounce it.
The goblin
was low when I got tested.
It's utilization. So we real fast touching on that. If your levels to repair sex hormone binding globulin, like we know that there's a natural decrepitation with age and stuff. But the truth is that this is what I found, because the liver is responsible for clearing a lot of hormones. So what we do is we create hormones and then we excrete them, right? When the liver's in a better state, I don't know why. I just see that everyone, I see a lot of blood panels significantly improve, including my own. My hormones aren't great from all the concussions. Like, I got some pretty ugly little devils that I deal with. And it's, I have another friend of mine. He's a carnivore guy.
So how are you advising to clean the liver?
Well, so that's the thing, is by inhibiting glycogen-rich foods. Another thing too is blood work. I think you've talked about. I think you worked with Insight Tracker.
Yep,
you got blood to get blood work, especially from a company like Insight Tracker that is like didactic. I mean, it's teaching. Look, I have a job or a career now because I can translate stuff. I'm not that smart, dude. I don't fucking know shit. I'm a high school dropout, actually. But I've taken all this stuff and created compendiums out of it. And so when I look at Insight Tracker, I know what erythrocyte sedimentation rate is. I know what homocysteine is. I know what C-reactive protein is. Not because I'm smart, man, just because I'm fucking into it. And so if you guys get blood work, Insight Tracker is a great option there. Or, obviously you reach out to me and I can help. But to get your blood work and to look at it and be like, dude, my prolactin levels are through the roof. My testosterone levels are quite low. It doesn't immediately mean that go start, getting on testosterone replacement therapy, which frankly is a very serious endeavor. If you get on that stuff, it's good, but it's not good. Like, you shouldn't need it. None of us should, quote unquote, need it. But it's a consideration that deserves a bit of pause, because if you start doing that and you have to do it for real, you're giving yourself injections.
So she had mentioned when I talked to the counselor at Insight Tracker, she mentioned that a lot of CrossFitters had this low sex binding, blah blah blah, the SBGH or whatever.
Yeah, sex hormone binding globulin. So what it is what's interesting, Eddie, really to touch on. This is why I think in the future,
is that? Why are CrossFitters having that? Why is it low in CrossFitters? Is it too much stress? Is it?
Oh yeah. So the thing is in my case, my HPTA is disrupted from the concussions. So what that means is that my hypothalamic pituitary axis it struggles with communicating to gonads and things like that. I know it's like a goofy subject, but a lot of us are dealing with it. And straight up, I mean, I'm not only repaired, I'm better than I used to be. But when I was, 34 or 30, I was an andropause. Like, people don't even know that. And it's like, well, that's kind of embarrassing. I go, it's not like that, dude. It's not like I was walking around like an 80-year-old. I just was, the depression that I owned from the concussions, it was higher. Blah, blah, blah. So the thing is, it's just getting nutrition really tidy. Go and see an endocrinologist. Go learn about yourself.
Yeah.
Understand what your commitments are when you start getting on a medication. What's a pharmacokinetics? Back to the testosterone thing, we're taking, 100, IU or 1 milliliter a week. Dude, you didn't even know what that means? In what context is your body producing it? And when I started seeing that, I was like, you know what, man? All of us are up in the halos. We're in the accessories. We're wanting to get into these things, but I'm like, what's the bedrock? This is back to the CrossFit triangle. The bedrock's nutrition, man. And I just was like, you monkey, man, you fucking Dylan. So that's, and the irony is I've always been passionate about food. I started this when I was 13, which was me becoming vegan. There's no one in my family who was vegan. Everything I did, man, I would be reading Nietzsche at the breakfast table because I was getting my ass kicked at school and bullied. And I'm like, what do motherfuckers do? And I'm like, well, I heard Saint Germain doesn't eat meat. Samurai don't eat meat. Buddhists don't eat meat. And that was like, that's how stupid I was. But you know, after 20, you know, or well, not quite, but like 20 years, I was super sick, man. And I was pre-diabetic, and my dogma and my lack of flexibility turned me into, frankly, a creep with my health. And not fun, dude. I was just a dogmatic asshole. And my vibe and the way I talk to people was like that. And so that's why, frankly, where I'm at now, like everything's good, man. Whatever you're doing, if it's getting results, blessings to you, man. I'm so stoked for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
One question from Jeremy Lesniak. He wanted to know how does the latest research on the microbiome affect our understanding of nutrition?
Ooh, this is really great. So first off, they don't know.
Yeah, that's
like they don't know. And yeah, it's right now, it's like, so for instance, probiotics, this is really fascinating. So this will trip you out. So as I talk about my depression from TBI. So I've talked to you about this, Eddie, that
what's TBI?
My traumatic brain injury.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So like, I mean, I've got it so bad, I'm probably dealing with ECT. So that's why I eat the ketogenics, like train the way I do everything I do. Cause it's like, I'm sick, man. It's
and you got these concussions from snowboarding.
Yeah. I got them really young, just being like a just, you know, fucking little psycho kid. And then fights, and then a little bit of football. And then it was really the skiing. So I had a amateur career as a competitive mogul skier. And I did that in my high school years. And that's where I really got immersive into snow, because I was from Malibu. And then once I decided to go to school, I almost qualified for Junior Olympics. And I was like 2 alternates away. So then I moved out to Lake Tahoe to be closer to my family, because I was living in Steamboat Springs for those, 3.5, 4 years. And that's when I moved to Lake Tahoe. And my dad was like, I'm not paying for ski team. And I'm like, this close to doing what NORAMs is a World Cup, but domestic for this close, man. And I was so, and anyways, that's when I picked up a snowboard, which I had already done a couple times. And then literally 2 weeks later, I got sponsored weirdly by a company called Kemper.
Yeah.
And then,
but anyways, I've talked about this with you. My mogul skiing days, like people don't understand. I mean, talk about the physicality of it and the injury. I remember skiing up a mountain one time with a ski patrol that I was friends with, who's a famous knee surgeon in Pittsburgh, Dr. Freddie Fu. And he was watching me like ski moguls or something, and he said, "You're destroying your knee."
The best rapper name ever.
Yeah, Freddie Fu. He said to me, he goes, you're gonna destroy your knees. And I was like, what? He's like, it's just an inevitability with skiing moguls like that. And I'm East Coast ice bump, like landing. It's like,
but you don't have bad knees though.
Nope, I have great knees. So Freddie Fu,
dude, my knees are dialed. I blew my knees out surfing. I blew my knees out, my MCL, because I never did anything as a competitive mogul skier. I did upright aerials. I did slope style as a pro snowboarder, and half pipe, World Cup half pipe.
Well,
I strangely enough,
but I did. Yeah, I did beat my body up. A lot of the worst hits I've ever taken in my life, from football, everything you've talking about, mountain bike, whatever it was, being on motorcycles. The biggest hits were, launching in an improper way off a mogul and then landing on another one, and just. I mean,
you got up transition, you got side transition. Yeah. Sometimes you'll land and it's like you're landing in the face of the mogul, or like. But what's remarkable is now.
What I was getting to is
they build the moguls now. When I was a competitive skier, we used to hike up the hill and make these things called the rut line, ski the rut line, and so now they have groomers to make these moguls. Right. And I look at it and I'm like, but anyways, continue. Yeah.
So my point was the beatings that you take in that. And then I was also one of we're going back to the 90s. Or even late 80s, I was one of the first snowboarders on our hill, because no one was doing it. In fact, we had to go ask them if we could do it.
Yeah, they must have. It was so grumpy back then. That's when I lived in Steamboat Springs, and it was like pretty intense. And
I'm saying this because people are listening to you going, "Oh, 2 weeks, you were a sponsored snowboarder," and it's like, we are the first snowboarders on the mountain. Like, people were not doing it. Like, we're at the infancy of the sport.
We want to put it in context too. Like, I didn't. So let me. That sounds super humble brag douchebag, but it's actually true. When you take a ski or snowboard, and especially the way that my brain thinks, I'm like, okay, I'm taking ski science and learning how to angulate a ski, right? when you take that principle and now you've taken a snowboard that's essentially smaller, it still rolls, it still yaws, it still flexes, it still has the tangent lines. And now I'm speaking snowboard design. That when I stood on it, I also surfed. I've been a competitive surfer since I was 8 years of age. So when the two nexuses, created this nexus between my surfing and a snowboard, within 20 minutes I was snowboarding, where I was like just pretending I was surfing. And then I realized I'm like, it's a ski. So a ski, you angulate, toe ball roll, right? So I was like, well, if my hands are in front and I'm maintaining bias or integrity at the front foot and the back foot, and I don't let the board skip out and I use the edge. And then what I did is I started thinking about, well, if my back hand is like holding a string to my tail, if I maintain my shoulder line and the tail follows my shoulder line, I won't skid out. Then I started doing it backwards. So now I'm riding fakie. Well, dude, back in 1992, people didn't, my brain, it's true. It was 2 weeks. And by the way, it was a year later. I moved there in 91, and in 1994, I signed my first pro contract with Sim Snowboards as a world team rider. So if people don't, and I came from Malibu, man, if it wouldn't been for Colorado. So if you're focused, man, I got to ski under Park Smalley at the Winter Sports Club, who was the U.S. ski team coach. My first fall in high school, I trained with the U.S. Nordic ski team. My sports counselor was Tom Stites, and he knew that I didn't ski, and he's like, yeah, you're going to come and train with us. And that's when I just was like, first of all, I hated all of them because they were dorks. But then I looked at them and I was like, these dudes are complete motherfuckers. And I was super inspired. They're all like 6 foot tall man boys doing this crazy, crazy ass training. And I was just like, okay, these guys are donkeys and I don't like them, but my God, I was in such awe and respect. And to this day, I was like, those dudes do work. And actually, funny enough, my headmaster, I used to babysit his son, who became our most famous Nordic skier ever, which is Johnny Spillane. So shout out to the Spillane family and the Steamboat Mountain School. That place changed my life. Dope. Yeah.
All right. Well, I could ask you 7 million.
Yeah. Oh, and the gut
questions.
biome thing. Shit, I'm so sorry. The bottom line is they don't know. A lot of the probiotics that we wantonly take, I don't recommend. Some people who have histamine issues, probiotics can trigger. In regards of the gut biome and what's going on, the dialogue and understanding the vagal tone. So for instance, I have major histamine issues. My episodes seem to correlate with when my stomach is tripping on histamines. So I'll leave this last point regarding my TBI stuff. I actually wonder myself, and I think I mentioned this to you, that my concussions are actually less responsible for any of like the depersonalization syndrome that I go through versus like, I wonder, is it my histamine? Is it my gut biome? So it's a fascinating question. I apologies for not knowing more on it, but frankly, they don't know either, man. It's such a kind of opaque, mysterious space. But in years, look, we've got CRISPR, we've got more gene coding. They're learning so much stuff right now that most of us, I would say, frankly, we just eat in a way where our gut biome doesn't get so much fucked up, but we walk around with a small case of small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. We have 3 stomachs. When this culture starts growing down on our 3rd stomach, if you will, being the ileum, like that, it's just uncomfortable. It's bloaty. And so when we eat foods that are quote unquote beneficial for that bad bloat, it makes it worse. So, and that's really, we eat sugar and we eat some foods that kind of promote that culture. And actually that's with your wife, we got her away from that. And she's like, a lot of women talking like, well, I feel bloated on this and that. Yeah, so it's eating good leafy greens, rich in fiber, and the stuff that promotes this stuff called inulin, not insulin, but inulin.
What is inulin?
Inulin is like, I guess it's a byproduct that's in fiber, or rather, forgive me. When you eat fiber, it promotes inulin in the stomach, if I understand correctly, remember right. So it's a super beneficial of eating appropriate amounts of fiber. Some people go too hard. I try to eat and recommend to my clients that we eat 1 cup of salad for 5 to 7 cups of salad, at least 1 or 2 avocados a day. Why? This is the constituent of potassium that we want to, because potassium is so essential. But again, I could go off about that. But regarding the gut biome and stuff, if you're having issues, I recommend taking liposomal colostrum. This can promote chyne and mucosa development in the stomach. A lot of us who train, we get like sick when we train. I do. And so what I do is I make up a little brew of like colostrum and actually like collagen, being just pure glycine, and then just slam that. And it seems to make my tummy feels way better. And by the way, this doesn't mean if you have tummy issues that you're like, you're shitting yourself. It really is just discomfortability and being uncomfortable. But yeah, man. So hopefully I answered that question. It's want to eat good and just be accountable to how you feel, and then ask questions. Simply ask questions, man.
Well, thanks, Dylan. You've done a great job with my wife. I appreciate it very much. She looks great.
Oh, you guys are the best, dude. I love you, man. You've been a good friend and an advocate, and you've been, you always reach out when I need someone too. You're a legend, dude. And I'm just so excited to see you and your family. And shit, you're going back on the road, dude. It's so cool. It's,
well, I got to get my shit together.
Again.
I got to get my shit together before I go on the road, because that is the hard part, is keeping your nutrition tight on the road. So, and
I'll help you, man.
I'm not going to go as crazy as Stan Efferton, who told me he packs these thermoses full of like meatballs and rice and bone broth.
He's so awesome, though. What an awesome guy.
I just can't do it. I can't, So
have you seen that they went after him recently? It's so funny. That dude is like, first off, the nicest guy, and he's just
so
like a
nice.
beast.
Such a good guy.
Some people went after him saying that he skips leg day.
Okay.
And he's sitting there back squatting, like, I think it was like 525 for 8, something ridiculous. And you're just like, hey, people, shut the fuck up.
People have
the guy's
much,
rad.
People have too much time on their hands. I don't know how.
Yeah, man. Like, go stand in the mirror.
I don't have time to criticize anyone on the internet.
Unbelievable, man. Like, yeah, focus on, like, be of value, practice. I'll say this, be of value. Let's all practice our best practices. Just smile, have joy. Are you
currently taking clients?
Yeah, quickly to speak to that. Like, I work by myself. I don't even have an assistant anymore. Yes, I am. But I me, Eddie, I talk a lot. There's weird energy. The communication's intense. So I'm selective of who I work with based on it being like an ideal fit. I'm not for everyone, but yeah, certainly. And, I'm always available for anyone who wants to reach out or have a question.
How do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, on all social media, I go by Physiologic, which is FYSIOLOGIK. And yeah, my name is Dylan. So, but again, thanks, Eddie, man. It's so cool that I get to kind of share my passion, with everyone. And like, you're awesome, dude.
Thanks.
I get to see the kids soon.
Thanks for doing the show. And I'm going to hit you up with how to cure my cough.
Yeah, it's a little bit disconcerting, man. Like,
all right. We don't need to have this out on the show. Goodbye, everybody. Rate, review, and comment.
Yeah.
That's what I like that you do. Goodbye.
All right. Thanks, guys. Yeah, Eddie.